All right. Hello. So we're here to talk about schwa, a cup of mustard. We say sometimes that schwa just happens, and so today's topic is about where we find schwa, why it's difficult to teach, and strategies that we can use to teach it more effectively. Okay. We're working with the color vowel chart, the color vowel approach, page 7, where we have a nice little section, very short but very concise, about just what schwa is. And we don't get so much in the book as to how to teach it. So that's why we're having this webcast today. Okay, but taking a look at that will definitely be helpful. And let's start with the color vowel chart. It's always the best way to get started with an awareness of the vocal tract and where we go. And so if you're here, I'm going to mute you, and I trust that in the comfort of your home, you're going to follow along, repeating after me. Here we go. Green tea E.
Green tea E.
Great. Silver pin I.
Silver pin I.
Gray day A.
Gray day A.
Red dress E.
Red dress A.
Good. Black cat A. Okay. Olive sock Ah. Olive sock Ah. Auburn dog Aw. Auburn dog Aw. Turquoise toy Oi. Turquoise toy Oi. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so we can see everything. Good. Rose coat O. Rose coat O. Be noticing the third sound being pulled from the first and second word. So we have wooden hook wooden hook blue moon ooh, blue moon ooh. A cup of mustard a cup of mustard purple shirt purple shirt white tie white tie I, and brown cow ow, brown cow ow. Great. So we've created the color vowel chart with a kind of simplicity that allows us to access it immediately, and at the same time with certain features that over time will draw either the teacher's attention in training with us or the learner's attention in working with the teacher. And so people will walk up to me, or the students will walk up to their teacher, they'll walk up to you, and we've designed this for this dialogue where they walk up to you and tell you what they notice, or essentially they ask a question that conveys that they've noticed something. So the mantra that we often repeat is to resist teaching the color vowel chart, and let the chart provide an open space for learners to walk in and ask questions about the vowel sounds of English. And so one of the questions that comes up after you have the chart up on the wall all the time, and students look at it and they refer to it, and they know from the beginning, because you've presented them with the idea that the word teacher is a green T word because the stress is T, and that's the sound in green and T. So teacher is a green word, and they're familiar that, they hear the word student, they'll identify that as a blue word, blue moon student. And so they're familiar with the colors as a way to highlight the peak of stress and to pin down a word and organize words by their stressed vowel sound or their color. And typically they're also familiar with using the color vowel organizer and writing words in the organizer so that they can study words at home by their color category. Okay. And then after, it could be a few days, it could be a few weeks. It all depends on what the learner brings to the table. But often the next question is, well, what does the shape mean? And we know, and then we answer the question. We say, thank you for asking. And so the shape is the vowel tract, and yow, y, and we get into vowel yoga if we haven't already. I don't always wait for them to ask that question. Sometimes I present color vowel yoga, but I still wait for them to notice and to ask additional questions about the relationship between yoga and the mouth. And then a third question that will come up might be the Y's. These Y's and W's, what are these? Or they'll notice the Y, R, and W at the top, but not the ones inside. And so there are all kinds of ways that these noticings and what students come to us noticing gives us a window on where they are in their journey of discovery about the sound of English, the sounds of English. And so then a fourth or fifth question is, why is a cup of mustard so big? And then you say, thank you for noticing that. Or they say, why does a cup of mustard have 4 words in it and everything else is 2 words? And that's another great noticing. And all of these are, of course, intentional aspects of our design that invite a learner to notice something is different about a cup of mustard. Okay. And so what's nice about, to answer those questions, what a cup of mustard is all about is that we have 4 words that all contain an aspect of mustard. But mustard is unlike all of these other vowel sounds in the sense that it has 2 behaviors embedded within it. And that is the cup and mustard are the stressed mustard sound, so a cup of mustard. And then these 2 words, the and the uv, otherwise presented often as or a and of, but here I'll call them and uv, are exemplars of the unstressed vowel there, which is schwa. So schwa is happening in these 2 words, and it is not what I would call the sound in cup and the stressed syllable of mustard. And I say that because I've seen in visits to schools and talking with educators that in sort of the general realm, the word schwa is being used to describe that sound in its stressed and unstressed contexts, which it's not just a matter that it's not accurate from a linguistic standpoint. It's that by calling it schwa, we're running ourselves into a corner where we're not going to gain clarity. And so we need to reserve the word schwa to refer to unstressed, reduced vowel sounds in words and phrases. And typically they sound like this sound. But sometimes they'll sound a little more silver, or or they might sound a little more wooden, and so schwa is the second aspect of what we've done here with a cup of mustard is it contains both schwa and the stressed mustard sound, but also it's bigger because any one of these vowel sounds, including white and brown, by the way, can reduce to schwa. And so it touches on the boundaries of as many of these as we can to convey that basically we have this resting position in the center of the space in our mouth, and we rest there and we go away from it to create stress in a word or phrase, and then we return to the schwa basic position, and that's our resting position in English. Spanish has a different resting position. French has yet another resting position, and they produce different vowel sounds in those positions. And so if you've ever listened to somebody who's hesitating in Spanish, they don't say, they say, like that. And then a French speaker often says, will say, and so their resting position is more like closer to our blue. And the Spanish resting position is closer to our red, let's say. But the English-speaking resting position is okay. And we'll come back to that as a way to teach stress and unstress. And you can already see I'm using my hands a lot, okay, because we'll need to get kinesthetic. So the boundaries of a cup of mustard touch all of the other vowels, with the exception of white and brown, just because they're out here at the periphery, but they also, in some cases of some words, will reduce to schwa. Okay, moving along. So a little bit about schwa, simply because we know there's a lot of misinformation out there and misuse of the term. Schwa is the sound found in unstressed syllables. So here are some good examples. I've marked these with a mustard color. So banana, b, and the n, banana, banana. And I'll go ahead and ask you to say these with me. Banana, slowly, banana. Good, banana. So I want you to draw your brain's attention to the unstressed syllables. And it's a very strange feeling to notice the b and the n, banana. Same thing with the next word, 11, 11, It might be 11. So you might raise it a little bit. So maybe we'd have 11, 11. But that unstressed syllable is what we refer to as schwa, this whole region of behaviors that is reduced. Okay, the vn of 11 is also reduced. Try the next one, tama. So here's the stress, tama, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Now I've marked the last part of tomorrow as a possible schwa behavior. Depends on your dialect and your register probably. Tomorrow, 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 tomorrow. So we can go all the way through with a clear unstress at the end, or we can schwa the ending, tomorrow or tomorrow. Okay. But in any case, all of those are the unstressed syllables, and in all of those cases, except for the end of tomorrow, they are both unstressed and reduced. So we have unstressed syllables, and many of them reduce to schwa, and some of them don't. And I'll cover some examples a little bit later. And we're talking here about unstress phenomenon. Second little factoid here, schwa is the most common sound of spoken English. And that makes a lot of sense now. And another reason why we've made this so large, we are constantly going from a resting position out to create stress, and we're coming back. And so we have both the conscious behavior of cup and mustard, but we also have all of the unconscious productions of schwa. And that's what really drives the data up to make that the most commonly used sound in spoken English. And yet most of it's hidden from you, from a native speaker of English, because it's produced unconsciously, which is my next point. So schwa is an unconscious or automatic sound that we make. We don't know most of the time when we make it. It's the byproduct or goes hand in hand with the fact that English is a stress-timed language. English is a stress-timed language. English is so I'll show this from the side. And I use the open hand from the side to convey where the unstressed or schwa behavior is. English is, so all of that business after ing is unstressed and reduced to schwa. English is a stress-timed language. English is a stress-timed language. Okay, so that and all of that is back here. Now, I don't get incremental about this. I don't recommend teaching each syllable as English is. I wouldn't go that way. Keep it very fluid, and so that your learners know that they're coming into and out of the central position of the mouth. So we could come here and say English is a stress-timed language, something like that. It gets a little cumbersome. But you can see what we're doing here, that we're always coming back to the center. Okay. And finally, I really love the way this was written when I was looking around for ways to describe schwa. But any written vowel can be a spoken schwa. Okay, and this is from the linguist Erika Arendt. And I just think it's really succinct, so I put it in quotes and gave some credit there. She is the linguist who creates these beautiful videos for mental floss. So if you are in my Color Vowel community, if you already own the Teacher Starter Kit from the Color Vowel Approach, just know that I just put a link up in there where you can find her videos. They're all quite lovely about the history of written English and spelling. But in any case, this point is that any written vowel can be a spoken schwa. That means that it's not just the A's in banana or the E's in 11 or the O's in tomorrow, but rather the letter U can also represent a schwa depending on context. So I've written a sentence here at the bottom that happens to contain all the different vowel letters, A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. So we have can you supply them? Can you supply them with a practical synonym tomorrow? It's a strange sentence, but look at how much schwa is going on here. Can you them with a tickle, tickle, ninum. Oh, I missed a little unstressed there. Ninum, tomorrow. So can you supply them with a practical synonym tomorrow? There's a great deal of reduction happening there. Okay. The challenge of teaching Schwa. This is where we get into the beautiful ironies. In speech, we unconsciously stress whatever we're drawing attention to. And so the moment you stress Schwa, it's no longer Schwa, and things start to get weird. An example would be a student who says, and they're maybe reading it from a piece of paper, but they say apply. And then the teacher says, no, it's not apply, it's apply. And then the student says, oh, okay, I'm going to apply for a job. And then she says, no, 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 it's not apply, it's apply. And the student says, okay, apply. So you often find a three-part turn into that kind of correction where the teacher creates an artificial stress of the schwa syllable, and then it has to go to yet another stage to get to an accurate pronunciation. And we're lucky if they get to that third. Sometimes learners will walk away with an inaccurate impression of how a word sounds because a teacher artificially stressed an unstressed syllable. And so it does get a little weird, and it certainly helps now that we have the open hand, or that we can use a rubber band, and that we create a common dialogue around stress, which the color vowel chart offers. So in classrooms where the color vowel chart is used, we don't find this conversation happening as often, meaning this sort of dead end or strange, weird conversation where the learner walks away with an inaccurate pronunciation, despite the teacher's effort to correct them. So instead of, we can basically cross out that second apply and say apply, apply. And the teacher's model will make sense from the beginning because we've got the chart in place. What color is apply? It's a white tie word, apply, apply, or apply, okay? So we get that idea a little more efficiently when we've got the chart in place, for sure. Okay, and so here's a whole phrase, because we really don't want to be stuck at the word level. We want to be in the phrase level. And I just wanted to give another strategy, provide you with another strategy if you're not already using it, which we call back building. And so if we take a long phrase like this, when are you going to apply for the job? When are you going, you can decide how you're going to say that. When are you going to apply for the job? So when we have a long phrase like that that's challenging for a learner, you can start from the end and go backward. So we can say, the job, try that with me. The job, for the job, for the job, for the job, apply for the job, apply for the job, apply for the job, to apply for the job, to apply for the job. Now it starts to get interesting. Gonna apply for the job, gonna apply for the job. So the minute I add going to, it's much more likely I'm going to say gonna apply, gonna apply, gonna apply, gonna apply, gonna apply. You're gonna apply, you're gonna apply, you're gonna apply. Or you're gonna apply, are you gonna apply? When are you gonna apply for the job? When are you gonna apply for the job? So we have, when are you gonna apply for the job? Okay, and notice that when I slowed down, just in order to slow down, I created a glottal stop in there. When are you gonna apply for the job? That I can also say, when are you gonna apply for the job? Gonna apply. Okay. So pay close attention to what happens when you slow way down and really show that stress and reduction back here. Okay. But back building can be very powerful for students because they're no longer thinking about the words, and they're repeating the sounds and mimicking the rhythm with you. All right. Another challenge of teaching Schwa is that in writing, any mark that you make creates a visual emphasis. It creates its own stress, in other words. And so how do we mark Schwa without visually stressing it? And here I'm going to move over to my little whiteboard. Here. All right. And so here's color vowel chart. So this is my whiteboard. Beautiful whiteboard. So here's that word apply. Okay. We need to always identify the stress because that's going to provide the context for schwa and for the unstress. If we just start from the beginning, let me show you which way not to go. If we say, well, today we're studying schwa, and here is the schwa. Okay, so circling the this is the unstressed schwa reduced syllable is going to give it a kind of visual prominence that then can convey a sound prominence, and then they can end up saying apply. So we don't want to go there. We want to then take the word apply and start always with the very same question is, where is the stress and what color is it? And that is at the crux of the color vowel approach that gives the students a consistent way to approach a word and a phrase. Apply is a white word. There's the white. Now we can say what happens when we use our hand apply, apply, It's not it's apply. And so one way that we've learned to do is you can put a line through it and simply leave it at that. For students who already are familiar with symbols, the phonetic alphabet, you can do a little schwa there if you want, but not necessary. You can simply put a line here. And so you can take a word like, camel, and there's camel, and you put a line through it, and mark black. Okay, so we're always going to mark a little bit. We're always going to mark the stress and the color of that stress in the context so that we can then get to unstress. Unstress doesn't exist without stress, so always start with the stress. Okay. All right. And so we need to remember as we go along that Broca's area is always trying to keep us from noticing unstress and stress. These are automatic behaviors that our brain has learned all too well, very well, so that we don't need to pay attention to what we're stressing or unstressing as native speakers. And so that means that it's going to be challenging for you, if you're a native speaker of English, to notice what you're stressing and unstressing. And the moment you try to examine it, things will get tricky where you're not quite sure what you're doing anymore. So remember, in order to manage Broca's area or to not be steamrolled by it, you've got to use your hands. You've got to use your body somehow, or a rubber band, something that allows you to kinesthetically get around Broca's area. It's the smallest thing with the biggest payoff. And so the moment the hand comes out, you can suddenly notice things more accurately. If you sit with your hands in your lap or on the table, and you're simply sitting in a chair or standing and speaking, and your body's not involved, your brain will trick you often. And so resist that sort of normalcy of speaking without any movement and get into feeling where the stress is. It's almost impossible to move your head on the incorrect stress. And so whenever we talk like this, it's an almost automatic behavior to move with the stress. And that's why it's so powerful a tool for you in noticing. Okay, this all touches on color vowel yoga, of course. It's not just for the individual phonemes and moving from green down into silver. Let's do a little bit of yoga. And you can, if you want to touch your computer screen, you can do that. If you have the chart in front of you, you can do that too. But if we come up here, we've got green, T, E, and now we can come down, yeah. And now we're down at black, yeah. So this is a continuum of vowel production that vowel yoga at the outset is very clear about. It allows us to notice when we move into red, into black, around to rose, and up to blue. When we move back around, we can really hear all of these, especially gray on the way back up. So yow, Y. We can hear white, we can hear gray. All of these Y moving vowels will be evident when we come back around. When we go this way, we can hear the W moving vowels. So we hear rose, yow. We hear brown, yow, ow, o. Okay, white, a. Okay. But then if we come into the middle, we've got what we call Schwa. And so I'll want to give you an idea of what that looks like. So I'm going to do it here Let me seat myself in front of the chart. All right, so we've got, here is a cup of mustard in the center of my being. And Schwa is a pun created by Rebecca Wilner, who's here in the Maryland area, great teacher. I was saying, here's a soccer goalie metaphor, and she turned it into Schwacker goalie. It's kind of brilliant. And so the idea, though, is that you're here in the resting position, and we're ready for the figurative ball, which is the stress that's coming in the word that we want to say or the phrase that we're heading toward. Now, it would be tempting to, if I take a word like about, to be here and say, about, here we are with brown cow, and here's the chart behind me. But you can keep it very simple and ignore the chart behind me and simply say that stress comes out with your hands the way you would when you come up to get the ball, and then it comes back down on the unstress. Okay. So if we take a few words, I'll take, here we have lion, lion. So use your hands like this and repeat after me. Lion, lion. Okay. It is the same sort of phenomenon with the rubber band. Lion, lion. Okay. What I love about the Schwacker goalie is that, and it's sort of strange to do it while I'm sitting in a chair at a computer, so I'll see if I can get a little up and around here, that if I'm standing, here I am, it's great because it engages the whole column, the whole body, and so you're here at about, or lion, okay, and the legs are involved, and I like that because it helps students really feel schwa, and rather than have it be something that is an intellectual practice. So get the whole body up and use the legs, and then come back down and try the rubber bands. You want them to experience this in 2 or 3 different ways. They can trace it. They can be here and say, lion, lion, Okay, so 2 or 3 modalities, or just different exercises that involve the eyes, the hand, and the voice together. Okay, lion. Another example would be elephant. Try elephant with a little yoga. Elephant, 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 right? So we can also repeat and hear it musically. Elephant, elephant, elephant. Okay. Last one would be zebra. Nice green word. Zebra, or zebra. Okay. We could also come over here and say zebra, zebra, zebra. So we're always going to note where the stress is, probably what color it is, but definitely note the stress with our hands, our bodies, somehow, so that we can appreciate where the unstress is. In a sense, if you get students to really notice the stress and let go the moment they've performed the stress, they will experience what unstress really is. It should be not an effort. It should be a letting go. There's some analogy in there with meditation. If you've ever tried meditating, you can work really hard at it and really fail. And then the moment you let go is precisely when it happens. Kind of when you give up is when meditation can happen. So there's some aspect of that with Schwa. All right. So how can we teach Schwa without stressing it out? Schwacker goalie, we've just kind of gone through a little bit of the rubber band action, the open hand, and tracing stress on the color vowel chart to see when it goes out and when it comes back. Okay. Do all unstressed vowels reduce to schwa? No. So this is that, let me see if we have sort of the big circle. We've got stressed syllables and unstressed syllables, and within unstressed syllables, a subset of those are reduced to schwa, but not all of them. Okay, so all unstressed syllables are unstressed, but not all unstressed syllables are reduced, if that makes sense. And so here I've got some words here for you that demonstrate what we do with the syllables that are not reduced. Okay, we can call them clear unstressed vowels. We can call them unreduced vowels, however you makes the most sense to you. But if you look at the word monkey, say monkey. Monkey. Now there's a nice mustard word where the the vowel phoneme there, and the stress is that's the mustard sound. Monkey, monkey. Now this key, it's shorter in time, which is part of its being an unstressed syllable, but it's not monke. Monke is no longer the word monkey. That would result in somebody saying, what was that word? So we can't talk about the monkeys at the zoo. It has to be a monkey, and so that is a small green syllable that is unstressed, a little unstressed green. So if you need to, in instruction, if students are asking, well, what happens here? You say, yeah, that's a small green vowel right there. And yet this is a mustard word, and that's where you put it in the vowel organizer as a mustard word. Okay. Mosquito, mosquito. So here's a nice word where the m is reduced to schwa, by the way. Schwa. Mosquito, there's the green. Mosquito, mosquito, mosquito. Okay. And the O at the end is a small rose. So if students ask, you can say, yes, you do hear rose there. That's right. Okay. With butterfly, butterfly. There's the mustard, butterfly. Notice that with the open hand, I don't articulate each of the unstressed syllables. It's not butterfly or something like that. It's just stress and unstress, everything else. Butterfly, butterfly. So the fly, especially of butterfly, is unstressed but not reduced. And that's a little white syllable there. Okay. So you can think of some others. Any questions at this point? I'm going to stop the share there. Questions at this point. And you can unmute yourself. I want to welcome Liz and Anne. They've come to the room since we started. You have the power to unmute yourself. Hi there, Liz. All right.
Hi.
Great. And so tell me what's new for you, and this is for all of you. What's new for you that you have tried, but now you want to try again, or that you haven't tried that we've just talked about? I'd like to know sort of where this hits with you in your practice. Any thoughts on that?
This is Marcia. A couple things that have caught my ear today. A lot of things have caught my ear. One of them is the letting go. I like that concept of letting go as opposed to putting the effort on producing it. And also the emphasis on rhythm at the sentence level. I think those are two good things that will be helpful for me to try again and work on some more. One question I had on the rubber band, Karen, I've seen some people who use the rubber band and they will extend it not only on the stress syllable, but also on like an unstressed syllable. Maybe they'll go 100% out on the primary stress, then come back in, and then they'll go out a little bit to show the second one. Would you recommend?
That's a great question. Thank you. So what you're referring to, I think, is probably secondary stress, and that's something we haven't touched on. But let's take something like one of my favorites is supermarket. So super is the main stress, and that's supermarket's going to be a blue word. But when you're dealing with the rubber bands, it gives you an opportunity. You can do it with the hand too, but you can acknowledge the secondary stress. So it's not supermarket, but supermarket. Supermarket. So I think that's what you're seeing is when somebody takes a word like educational. It helps acknowledge their awareness of the secondary stress. Yeah. And yeah, so it's simply there when your students want to, or they come to the table having learned about secondary stress. I think one of the challenges, of learning to work with the color vowel approach is simply deprogramming. And so we say, okay, it's good to know about secondary stress, but you don't have to know about it all the time. And so, that allows a student to acknowledge their awareness of the secondary stress, as long as they're not doing something like educational. Now that I would watch out for, because it's a window on the fact that they feel like both of those are equally stressed. Educational, no, educational. And so then again, I'd step away and say, do we really need that second beat in there? Can we not just say educational? Educational. So it's almost like in a way, it's a symptom of their awareness of, or unawareness of, how stress works in English if they're doing big movements on both. So it's a nice window. Yeah. And there are some words like hierarchy. Try hierarchy with your hand here. Hierarchy. What do you do, right? Hierarchy. Hierarchy. So it feels really useful to have a place for the R. Hierarchy. And it could be hierarchy. Hierarchy. Those are both appropriate. It depends on who knows what and who's aware of what. Yeah. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think another sort of challenge of my answering questions is that I often come back to, you're going to have to tap into what are they aware of? What do they believe in? Sometimes you have learner beliefs like, I've got to use IPA. Well, you don't want to just say, nope, we're not going to use IPA because I don't believe in it. I wouldn't get extreme about those things because it'll drive students, into a place where they feel like I'm not respecting what they bring to the table. So even though deep down I know I can teach a whole course with no phonetic symbols, I can certainly play their game and harness what they bring to the table and help them feel comfortable that I'm there with them, and then bridge them to more simplicity so that they can let go and come in for stress and let go on unstress. So a large part of this is helping people be less analytical about what they're doing with their mouth and with their stress and unstress. Okay.
I've noticed, Karen, that a lot of students have noticed that some syllables are more stressed than others, but they don't know that it behooves them to pick out one that is the major stress. Like they just think it's sort of random, like, well, some syllables are really loud and long and some are not. So it's been helpful for me, especially to get them to identify what color it is. That's like making them visually and every way identify that there's one.
That's right.
By the way, I like your purple shirt.
Oh, thanks. It's Purple Shirt Thursday,
Oh, is it? Oh, dang. I didn't get the memo.
Thursday is Purple Shirt Thursday.
Dang it.
Well, let me take a moment to show, just so everyone sees here, the vowel organizer. That's exactly right. That if we're looking at, I'm doing that weird camera thing. There we go. The vowel organizer. And so, the vowel organizer, I would ask all four of you in the room, is it a daily tool for your students? And if it isn't right now, you might want to bring it back into the center, because it always begs the question, where am I going to put this word? I can put it in one box. Or if we're talking about, some amount of dialect variation, like flag and flag, where the word flag is for me, it's, that's a rough one. Flag is black for me and gray for Shirley, let's say. But, we might put the word Miriam. Miriam might go right here between silver and green, because me, right? But other than that kind of dialect variation, the question of where is the stress, there's one primary stress that we're going to choose. And, the vast majority of English words have just one primary stress possibility. And there are a couple words where you can switch them, like Tennessee or Tennessee. But for the most part, you're going to find this is going to beg that question. So yeah, you're right, Liz. It really focuses them.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Do you know that in the South, I say umbrella, so it's a red dress word, but down here in the South, they say umbrella.
Yeah, I need my umbrella.
And Thanksgiving is also one.
TV. So, the stress can move. TV. Yeah, TV. And so there you would put umbrella on in a cup of mustard, and you put TV. Well, they're both in green. And what was the third?
Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. Sure. So there's Thanksgiving. What color's Thanksgiving for you?
Me?
Yeah.
It's silver. Thanksgiving.
Sure. But if it's Thanksgiving, where's it going to go?
Oh, I hate that question. I think the correct answer is black.
Yeah, it's tough. Thanksgiving, so you can say black cat Thanksgiving. But boy, with that, the N assimilation, it really sounds gray, doesn't it?
No, it sounds like tan man.
Thanksgiving could sound like tan man for you. Good. So just so you know, when we recently did some coding for our Blue Canoe app, we took the word thanks, and it is gray in the Blue Canoe app.
Is that
Thanks.
right? Okay.
Thanks. Try it, everybody.
Thanks.
Gray,
Yes.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that even if I as a native speaker don't perceive it as gray, it's still a very good guide for a non-native speaker to say that word effectively.
And did you apply that to the other AM, like hamburger and?
Well, hamburger is not gray though. It's not the same behavior. That's the vowel raising that you're noticing in black. That's particular to your dialect. So the Tian Man phenomenon that Anne and Marcia and Lenore, the others in the room, may not have in their dialect. But all of us can hear the gray, I would argue. I'm hoping. I think we can all hear the gray in thanks, because we're moving from thang. The getting up to is going to create a movement of the vowel that mimics gray.
Okay.
Yeah. So a little different than Tian Man, Tan Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good. Other questions for teaching Schwa? I wanted to, while you're thinking of questions, I want to share a video that we have in the Teacher's Lounge. And so we'll move over to, let's see, this guy right here. This is Laura McIndoe teaching a class in New Mexico. And watch what she's doing. You'll like this, Marcia, what she's doing with the rubber bands. What she's doing with unstress or schwa, and how she attaches that in the context of a lesson, how she's using that. So let's see if we can do this. And by the way, I'll be interested in the sound quality that you hear when we get done, just because I'm never quite sure what you hear versus don't hear on a video. So here we go.
Oh, I can't hear you.
So you can't hear me.
Oh, now I can.
Okay.
Now I can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I can't hear you, but that's okay. So let me see if I can play that for you again. I'd really like you to see what Laura's doing. Nope.
Neither can I.
Okay, now I can. Or wait, no, I can't. I can hear you, Lenore.
Yeah, I can't hear her either.
But you can hear me? That's weird.
Yes. Back.
All right. So now you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's not a possibility. I'm learning about the technology for sure. In the Teacher's Lounge, which all of you have access to, I believe, here's this classroom clip of Laura. So I'll let you watch that on your own. But she does a really beautiful job of integrating with a lesson and using the rubber band and just showing how the rhythm of English works through a whole sentence. And the students are very, very responsive to that. So take advantage of that. And we'll let that be for now. But essentially she takes, let's take a word. It's what time do you get up is the phrase. So if you try it, just try it with a rubber band or an imaginary. What time do you get up? Yeah. And then she divided the class, and she's got people who say, I think it's divided, but she says white mustard, white mustard. And then they hear white mustard, What time do you get up? What time do you get up? White, mustard. So again, ironically, I'm coming back to, to teach unstress, you have to keep focusing on stress. It has to be the dominant message of any conversation about reduction. And so that's when you see things going south or getting weird, it's because you've gone too deep into reduction, and now there's no way we can talk about it without stressing it, and it starts to become dominant. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so that would be the overarching message that I would deliver today, is that we have to resist talking about schwa. Let me get you back up on my screen so you can see what I'm pointing to. There we go. All right. And so you want to resist talking about schwa because it will take over and then it's no longer schwa. You want to always teach schwa and reduction in particular with the context of stress in place. And so we always start, what color is amazing? And then we can identify the schwa vowel as needed, but not as a standard course of action. It's when it's relevant. I think it was Marcia who said, they're working on it, but they're not reducing enough. And so we can come down to be aware ourselves that a word like iterative, back build on that, iterative, 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 and realize how much we really don't come out of the central part of our mouths for the rest of those syllables. So back building can raise that awareness. There's a third word, progressive, progressive, sieve, sieve, sieve. It might come up and be sieve. It might sound like silver, right? Progressive. So it'd be right here on the edge with silver. In phonetics, we call that a crossbar I. It has its own symbol, but it is an aspect of reduction or schwa. And so rather than getting into all the different symbols and identifications of what happens in reduction, we utilize schwa as this whole area where, imagine if you were to blend, with your finger and smudge the boundaries between all of these other vowel sounds and schwa. That's where, how far it can be over with a word like progressive, sieve, sieve. So it's a silvery kind of schwa. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then embrace moving into and out of schwa. Really start using the whole body with schwachergoli. Also use rubber bands. Also use the open hand. Use all of these because, as we were discussing earlier, it's not just a matter of what works best for you personally. You've got to know that for your students, different things also work well for them. And so if you say, well, I don't use rubber bands because I don't like them, that may be the thing that brings home the idea of stress to them. Just noticing it here in their arms may have been the key, right? So you want to cycle through a couple of ways and help learners say, I'm going to assess which one works best for me. And you'll see the lights will go on with certain strategies more than others for each learner. There's no one best way to do it. It's really combining. In a way, I think of what we do as what I've seen with occupational therapists and other therapists who have to find very creative ways to reach their client. So if the client doesn't notice the concept in one way, they'll move to the next. And they're constantly sort of gauging, the way around this periphery of this person to get in through some doorway. And you don't know where the doorway is yet. So think of yourself as that kind of a detective, an educational detective to reach your student. I just always put it in here, this is for folks who might watch this a little later, that the Teacher Starter Kit is the way in for what we do with the Color Vowel approach. It also gives access to the Teacher's Lounge and to my Color Vowel community. Which I'm just loving every single day with posts from teachers who are using the chart and asking good questions. And just know also we've got a Color Vowel Basics online workshop coming up. It's on, do I have it here? Let's see. Nope. It's May 22nd and 29th coming up. Those are Tuesdays from 2 to 3:30 Eastern time. And so if you know anybody, yeah.
It's a part 1 and part 2, or?
Yeah, it's a part 1 and part 2. They're each 90 minutes long. So it's just a half of what we do face-to-face, but it's a little bit geared, so there's a little bit more standalone to get people up and running with the chart.
And how much is it?
It's $90. So it's, yeah, $90 for 180 minutes. So you're getting it's a pretty nice per minute price on that one, I guess is what I'd say. 15% off with a coupon here. It's really handy for folks who can't travel to our next workshop that we have scheduled in Washington, D.C. Color Vowel Basics is on August 18th coming up. We're excited about that too. Okay. And so that's what I have for today. We have a few minutes for questions, comments, especially about Schwa, since that's our topic today.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you talk about not focusing on Schwa or not introducing Schwa, until later. So when you're first introducing the chart and we're doing a cup of mustard, you just present and of as mustard, and you don't even mention Schwa. And then later on, when you get into issues then later on you can point out how unstressed syllables are Schwa, but a cup of mustard is just all mustard when you first.
Right. Essentially, I don't even say that and of or mustard. I just say, a cup of mustard, and they all say a cup of mustard, And so we just leave it like that. It's just the way we refer to the mustard sound. And I love how I've noticed, people will say, oh my gosh, there are 4 words there. There aren't 4 words anywhere else. You're like, yeah, exactly. Good noticing. So you really want to leave that place for them to walk into it for their discovery.
So just focus on mustard and let them bring up the fact that there's also a cup of. Okay.
Yeah, or just cup and mustard. The same way, so the green and tea, we've got 2 words that are both green, or blue and moon. And so here it's cup and mustard. So it's just the combination is reversed, of course. We don't say mustard cup. But really, if you don't talk about it and you just present them as like all the others, they are just like all the others until somebody asks a question. And then you say, well, there's a reason behind that, thanks for asking. That's what I always say. Thank you for asking. Thank you for noticing, or good noticing. Yeah. So it's built for them to be agents in their own discovery rather than this tool that we put on top of them and say, here, you're going to use this tool.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, it's a great question. Yeah, there's a question that sometimes comes up at conferences. People will walk up, especially old school teachers who studied methodology, and they'll say, oh, is this based on the silent way? And well, there was this gentleman, Caleb Gattegno, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s who developed the silent way. And the silent way contained a bunch of carts, or these charts that were color-based, and he used them to teach pronunciation. But they were arbitrary. I'll just kind of touch on that for a second. The color assignments were fairly arbitrary, where the yellow color was, maybe it was ooh, it was not something that was in any way a color vowel reference. It was color coding, let's call it. But one thing, so I say, no, it's really quite different from the silent way, and it certainly isn't based on the silent way. But there's a principle of Gattegno's that I've always loved, and I recently posted it in the community. His mantra is to resist teaching. And I love that, because I find that in the classroom we tend to be so excited about what we're teaching that we take the fun away from the students, in a sense. We remove the stage for them, and it's all for us if we're not too careful. And especially for those of us that are extroverts, and I love teaching. I love it. And so I can stand up there and talk all day. But the chart kind of reminds me to resist teaching and to let students walk up and start playing with it, because it will not break. It will fortify the conversation. They're not going to make a big mistake with it. They're going to bounce up against it and start using it, and they will be the user of the chart rather than just us teaching the chart. Yeah. Other questions? It has been a pleasure talking with you today. Please know that you can enter my Color Vowel community. They're on Facebook, and ask more questions. And we look forward to seeing you. Any final comments from anybody?
I have a question in the chat. So you may have already, you might not want to do it during the call, but.
There you go. Let me just see there. I just haven't seen.
Well, I just came in at the end as you were doing a flat hand to indicate the stress, and I missed the explanation of why that's different than, the talking hand thing.
So a lot of times I'm using the open hand this way, like amazing, right? But I think from the side, I was slowing down and noticing what happens in the other syllables. Maybe that was what it was.
Oh, okay. So in other words, you never do like this. Can you see me?
Yeah.
Like this. That's what I do, but you do like this, right?
So let's be really clear. I never do just from the wrist out like this. I always take my arm out.
Right.
Because we want to have the time on vowel. And
Right.
so not only do I do that, but I have to make sure, it's very tempting to let students do some small version of this, but they have to get their arm out to have the time on vowel to create stress the way English speakers do it. Yeah. And then as far as, I don't think I have any problem with, yours versus mine. I mean, it's all a matter of, there are times when we catch the vowel in a word if it's a tricky vowel, or just have difficulty hear stress yet for them. So amazing, amazing, a. We might grab it and notice it here. And what are you doing, Liz? Show me.
I just I do extend the hand, but I just did it small but I thought I had always started with kind of bunched up fingers and then out like that.
I have a problem with that. That's fine. Just to focus more on modeling and having them extend their arm.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, I went to Peru last year, exactly a year ago, to follow up on a week-long training that we'd given the prior year. Okay, so these are teachers who were trained for, 4 days in the color vowel approach, and they're teachers of English. And so they knew what they were doing. They'd been using the open hand. And I had a teacher come up and just show me what she was doing. She was modeling for the group. And she was doing this. So she's saying, I'll use, amazing, brilliant, pretty, intelligent, like this. And so what I found is that's exactly what led to the syllable timed delivery of the word. And so we really have to come out intelligent, intelligent. Even if it has the Spanish speaking accent, the time on vowel is what's going to increase comprehensibility.
Right.
So I have to do it. They have to do it, whether I start here or here. Right now, I don't have an opinion about that. That's
right.
Fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
2 questions from Marcia. I just want to make sure I get these. Do you teach mustard explicitly? Good. I think we covered that. And so again, you want to come back to, you can't teach mustard. You can't teach, oh wait, Marcia, what's your question? You're asking, do you teach mustard explicitly? Are you talking about the phoneme, like the actual or are you talking about schwa?
The actual phoneme.
Oh, sure. Okay, so to actually get this sound down, yoga is a great way to help learners know how to produce it, because it is a sound that does not exist in many languages. There's some, but many languages like Spanish, Japanese don't have they don't have mustard in their language. And so they're going to hear it as a lot of times. So you're going to use yoga to come up from the bottom. Here's yeah, get anchored in olive, and now come up, and so it's just the jaw movement coming up with the tongue, and it's a central relaxed tongue going along for the ride, so to say. Cup, and get used to producing cup and mustard. It's very new for them. It's a very unfamiliar place in their mouth. And so they need time to go through the yoga, get anchored, come up, feel it, and produce, 5-10 words that are mustard. And that'll be the best, in my opinion. The more we talk about, relax your tongue, put it in the middle of your mouth, all of those defy success, because it already is in your mouth and you already feel like it's in the center, and yet it's going to go to one of the categories that you already know in your language. So the yoga is going to be that indirect but effective way. Okay.
Are you going to, I missed the first minute, are you going to email us this recording, or is it going to be posted somewhere?
Yeah, so I've been posting most of these webcasts in YouTube, and then I put a link in my Color Vowel community. And, so I think this one had a couple technical glitches. I might just share it with those of you that were in the room this time. We'll see. I kind of want to put out some pieces that are a little more put together technically. I really wanted to show that video, and then we had that glitch. So we'll see. I may cut this last part off and post it for everybody, but you'll get a link regardless if you want to see the beginning part in the next week. And then I usually take that link down if it's a temporary link. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, hey, great to see all of you, and thanks for joining me. We'll be talking again soon. By the way, I've got a webcast coming up that's fun on academic vocabulary, okay? So if you teach academic vocabulary, I would love to have you join us. This will come up on, shoot, when is that coming up? Academic vocabulary is
June 7th.
Thank you. I'm looking like in a calendar desperately. Yes, June 7th, academic vocabulary. And now that I look at this, I may have to, no, I'll be able to do that. I'll be able to do that. So we're excited about that. Just looking at, long words essentially, and what we can do around long words and what teachers are doing with it, how to combine it with part of speech and definition, and just down into the nitty gritty of what does classroom work look like with the color vowel chart and long words. Okay, so join us for that.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.